here we have the Dreadbox Artemis. It's their flagship synth, a 6-voice VCO with 2 oscillators plus a sub-pair voice, a resonant high-pass filter, a 12 and a 24 dB resonant low-pass filter. We've got sync, we've got cross-modulation, including FM of the filter. There's 2 ADSR envelopes, 2 LFOs, a nice stereo spread effect, a polyphonic sequencer, and 4 high-quality Sinevibes effects, a distortion, a modulation, delay, and a reverb. And a lot of the demos you may have heard of this do make the most of the effects, understandably, because they're more than standard synth effects. They can be modulated through the modulation matrix, so they don't just sit sort of statically at the end of the signal chain. And because lots of the demos have effects on them, after I published my ambient harps and pads demo, which again includes lots of effects, a few people did ask if I would concentrate or at least demo the raw tone a little bit more. So I thought I'd demo that by starting off with a really simple patch, just 2 oscillators, filter fully open, a really nice raw tone, then close the filter a bit, add some resonance, sweep through the resonance with an LFO, and then add some stereo spread, add some detune, start adding the effects to get a really nice lush tone, and then draw all that back again down to a simple raw tone from the start, so you could hear the whole range of sort of things it could do. And as I did that, I had a little practice of it, and it took 7 minutes to do that. I'm going to listen to that 7 minutes back. It just sounded so nice. I thought it'd be spoiled by me talking over the top. So I'm going to play that whole 7 minutes, but just to add a little bit more interest, I've stuck on some sparse beats. I've also stuck on a few classic samples as well. Be interesting to see if anyone can spot all the samples. Some are harder to spot and a little bit more obscure than others, but they're all things I sort of I've loved from the past. So be interesting to see in the comments if anyone actually does pick out all of them. Not sure how many are in there, but it's a really nice way, I think, of showing the range of the synth from the raw tone to the big lush effects and then back down again. But as I drew them back down, it had a physical effect on me. It felt like there was a wisp coming out of the mist and drawing my very soul into another dimension. When you hear the end of it, you'll see what I mean, hopefully. Anyway, sit back, relax, enjoy, and listen.
sunsets were purple and red and yellow.
What were the skies like when you were young?
The sunsets were purple and red and yellow.
Il est tard maintenant. Dusty, je me demandais si une fois le bébé endormi, on ne pourrait pas faire un saut en voiture jusqu'à San Angelo. Écouter de la musique quelque part, ou même peut-être aller au cinéma.
Bon, après le week-end, on va dormir de bonne heure par ici.
How amazing was that? Well, at least I thought it was. Not the production, not what I did, but more the fact that a single tone on a synth can take you on a whole journey. A little bit like an etude, is that what they were called? You know, themes and variations in classical music, where you take a bit of music and you explore it to the nth degree. If you've done any classical music training, you might know what I'm talking about. So that might be called variations and themes on a Dreadbox Artemis. And the other thing that people asked was it worth the upgrade from the Nymphs? Because they really love the sound of the VCOs on the Nymphs. Dreadbox has got really amazing sounding VCOs on all its synths. But, you know, after listening to a lot of demos, people still weren't quite sure if the Artemis really retained that quality. And it just so happens I still have my Nymphs here. I use it all the time, actually. I use it on lots of demos because of the compact size of it. It's so compact, and it means that I can get a Polysynth on camera on the table in such a small footprint. So I use it, as I say, use it all the time. And the fact that it sounds wonderful is almost a given, so don't even think about that. So I thought I'd try and match a couple of raw tones on the Artemis and the Nymphs, just to give you a feel of the vibe of it, really. I'm not going to go into loads of details. It's not a comparison, a big like-for-like thing. It's just, does it retain or even exceed the quality that you get on the Nymphs? I'm controlling them both with the key step. I've got the Nymphs on MIDI channel 1 and the Artemis on MIDI channel 2. So this is the Nymphs. And this is the Artemis. Starting off with a really simple PWM tone. And I'm using the launch control over here, or I have been using the launch control while I've been creating the tones, because obviously the Nymphs has got its secondary functions and some things on the menu system, and it just gets really confusing using, trying to compare two synths as it is, never mind going into secondary functions. So this launch control down here is really handy. I've got things like the VCA, the SR here, the reverb settings here, LFO, delay and fade here, so I don't have to go into page 2. I've got the detune and the pulse width down here as well, and at the very bottom I've got the high pass filter. So let's put it onto the Nymphs. And VCF LFO. So things that I would normally use when I'm playing something, or when I'm doing a little bit of a performance, I can access straight away with that. And those secondary functions were a bit of a criticism of the Nymphs. I mean, it is such a small and compact thing that you can't fit everything on it, but it really is a simple thing just to get something like the launch control to control it, because, what's this? About £100, something like that. So it's not exactly adding a lot to the cost of anything, and you've probably got something, or you may well have something like that lying around. Anyway, back to these two. Here's a PWM tone I've set up already. That was the Nymphs. Artemis. Nymphs again. Artemis again. And then finally the Nymphs again. Artemis. So I've got them sounding similar is really what we're showing there. I'll play something a little bit longer, have a little play with the filter. And then try that on the Artemis. Taking this up to full. You're getting these really nice screechy effects. So really gritty, dirty sounding things on the Artemis. The resonance isn't quite as high as it is on the Nymphs, but it goes into much more dirty territory. So this is the resonance on full on the Artemis. Let's whack the resonance on full on the Nymphs. So just watch your ears here because it does get a bit more resonant. But because it's more resonant, it cuts through a lot more. You can't really do exactly the same on the Nymphs. You get this sort of roughness. We'll try and emulate that on the Artemis, on the Nymphs. He says, and gets it almost identical. So let's try that over here as well. If we bring the resonance down, does it get more gritty? No, it just feels like I can get more of those crunchy tones out of the Artemis. It's not as resonant, but it does have a much more, I could say, crunchy or gritty feel to it. Again, just trying that on the Nymphs. It's not quite as dirty as that. So there are differences is what I'm trying to show you there. Not massive, they've both got a nice analog VCO type feel to them, but they are slightly different. And on the Artemis, we do have this drive function for the VCF. It's on low at the minute. Maybe if I turn it off. Yeah, maybe that's getting me more like the Nymphs. Try that on the Nymphs. No, there's definitely a difference there. And if I just turn up this drive a bit more, so let's put it onto high mode. As you increase that drive then, it does drop the resonance, hence the differences or the bigger differences when I was first playing it. I didn't realize it was on low. Sorry about that. But we've also got a 0 oscillator option on this now. We didn't have this before, no oscillator. So we're just playing the filter. So you don't have to try and, if you don't want the oscillator, you don't have to try and get the pulse width up to 0. So well, I won't do it because I've set this patch up. But previously, the only way of getting no oscillator was to dial in a pulse and then dial that pulse so thin that it was 0. But now, simply use this mode here, put the tracking on. Maybe you should put it on full. That's half tracking when it's flashing. Beautiful. Pulse width modulation on 0, and then we'll put the pulse width on 0 as well. Is that there? Yeah. Equally as beautiful. So there are subtle differences there, but I think they both retain that nice Dreadbox sound. Put them both onto a Sawtooth. Which one's that? That's the Nymphes, and then here we go. The Artemis. So I think they do retain that similar flavour. Where they obviously start to drift apart is obviously the Artemis does have 2 oscillators, which gives us sync, it gives us cross mod. We've also got these 4 effects. We've only got the simple reverb on the Nymphes, and actually the reverb's the bit I didn't really like about the Nymphes. It's got like a spring reverb texture, but it's not really my sort of thing. If I just play a little bit of that, let's drop the decay off. Add the reverb. So it's sort of springy. I don't know if it's meant to be a spring. Got the filter on that. Size, decay time, so. So it's not the nicest sounding of reverbs, not to me at least. And if we come over to the Artemis and do the same, let's just knock the VCA down. Oh, let's listen to the Artemis. Go to reverb, bring it up in the mix. That's more like what you'd expect. Feedback, size. That's large. Let's go for a huge reverb. Let's go for the cloud. So you can see like instantly that the effects on the Artemis leaps and bounds ahead of what you get on the Nymphes. You know, they are from Sinevibes. Whoops. That's nice. What else have we got? So small, large, huge, cloud and shimmer. Then go back to the Nymphes. It's got a certain charm, that though, hasn't it? It sounds like someone bashing some piano strings. It's definitely got a character, but it's more of a specific character than what you get on the Artemis. That's all I'm going to do on that, really. I think they've both got that really nice Dreadbox feel. I think the Artemis takes what the Nymphes is and takes it further with that distortion on there, and obviously all the other bits and bobs it's got on it. It is 3 times the price, but once you start playing with it, you realise why, and it just makes you realise what great value the Nymphes is, not how expensive the Artemis is, because the Artemis feels like it's worth the £1,200 to me. And before anyone pulls me up on that little comparison, I am aware that the Artemis probably has more in common with this, the Typhon. Here's the cool little spinny round view that you can get on Thomann. And this has a similar oscillator and Sinevibes effect setup, the main difference being the polyphony, 6 voices versus mono, stereo effects, voice spreading, dual filters, and the Artemis has much deeper modulation options. This version 1.2 update essentially gives us a whole mod matrix in here with separate pages for the LFOs, the VCA, the filter, and the amp, etc. So if I hit that, we can see all the destinations and then edit that destination. Come back, filter, envelope generator destinations. So loads more complexity in this update and loads more complexity compared to the Typhon. And I definitely shouldn't miss CC74. So this is for your MPE. It is MPE compatible. And you'll note here we've got all the delay, reverb, distortion, so all the effect parameters we can affect as well. And we're affecting them through CC74, so that's MPE, modulation of the effects. So let's just take a look at the LFO as well. So as I said earlier, there's loads of scope for modulating the effects within the patch itself. And while we're talking about effects, there are some extra upgrades in the recent version 1.2 firmware. Firstly, we've got a BBD Resonator in here. That's a bit like a cone filter. And we've also got another delay, BBD Playground. Let's go to the delays. Actually, I'll just play some of them so that we can hear what they sound like. I've not played any of them yet. Stereo, ping pong, BBD delay. Yeah, we can hear that. And by the way, all the LFOs and the delays have now got triplets and dotted notes for syncing. They didn't have them before. So BBD Playground, this is the new one. We're doing weird things with this offset. Feedback. Let's whack that right the way up. Oh yeah, it's quite cool, isn't it? Don't really know what everything's doing yet. And again, as all this is modulatable, you can do all this in your patch itself. That's the BBD Playground, so random repeater. Oh, that was quite random. Stereo again. We did hear the reverbs before, but I'll just mention them again because they have been updated for this. So they're now wider and they've got nicer tails. As I haven't played this before, the actual update, I couldn't tell you how much difference this is making. But they do sound nice. In fact, let's run through all the different modulation types as well, actually, because we've not looked at them at all. And this is raw, no modulation, no effects at all. Add some chorus. Nice. Let's go to the ensemble. Yeah, it's doing the job, innit? That. Lovely. Tape chorus. Nice and wobbly. BBD chorus. Yeah, these are all lovely, aren't they? Flanger. It's flanging. BBD flanger. Zero flanger. Oh, that's nice. Phaser. these are great. Oh yeah, that's a favourite of mine straight away. Now that's lovely. I was having play with this earlier, and I do like this one. Double notch. We don't have a notch on the filter. Well, could you make your own? Yeah, but with the high pass and the low pass, but I like to modulate a notch, so I like to do this effect when I've got one, so great. Pitch shift there. Excellent. And back to the BBD Resonator from earlier. And now the chorus again. And that's why everyone says the effects on this are great, because they are. So let's take a look at the distortion. Just make a new patch. And I'll have it as a pulse. Do a nice bassy pulse thing. Go distortion. This is nice and sort of bit ratey and okay, like a lo-fi thing, parabolic. I like all that bitrate stuff on these. So one was exponential, that was parabolic. This is a sine clip. S-curve. Fat as, aren't they? Soft clip. Whoops. Yeah, these are all lovely as well. Oh, there's loads of them. Loads of tone sculpting capabilities in this. Ouch. How many are there? Right. Can't believe how many there are. There you go, back to the start again. Yeah, loads in there. I wish I'd done that with a little acid line, really. There you go. It can do acidy, nasty bass lines as well, because it does have a mono mode. We've got the drive circuit that goes into the filter plus all those distortions. So it's not like a really nice, well-behaved polysynth. It can be your one and only synth, I suppose. If you wanted a monosynth and a polysynth, you've got them both in here. It really is a nice bit of kit, actually. I know people complain about the price. People complain about the price of lots of things these days, understandably, because things are very expensive, but I do think it's worth the £1,200. I do think it's worth the asking price. It really is a nice bit of kit. It is leaps and bounds above the Nymphes, and it's like 6 Typhons plus all the other little bits that you get in here. So from that perspective, I think it's a really nice machine. There were a couple of little niggles when it first came out that I read about. People were saying that the screen was dying, and they changed that. They had a guarantee, I think, that you could just get the screen changed if there was any issues with it. I've had absolutely no problems with this one, but wouldn't expect to, because it's a new one, and it does feel like a nice, hefty bit of kit, actually. All the knobs are screwed on. You know, it's got a bit of quality about the build to it as well. So I've shown the raw tones on it a fair amount. I've shown the effects on it. I've done a whole separate video with pads. I've done a little acidy bass line there. I've showed most, I think, of all the version 1.2 firmware updates. So I think I've showed everything that I wanted to show. So I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere. If it was, please do subscribe, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon. Got patches, samples, tutorials, and other little goodies on there. Also do take a look at my starskycar.com website as well. Again, there's patches, there's samples, there's free stuff, there's full sample packs, there's full preset packs, and as I always say, it's nice even if you pick up just some of the cheaper bits on there, because it really does all help to support the channel. So thanks for staying to the very end. I hope you enjoyed that redo, because I've really enjoyed playing with it, and I will see you next time.